This is Behind the Headlines, with behind-the-scenes analysis on issues affecting Pennsylvanians, sponsored by the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy. Now, here's your host.
Hi, from Philadelphia to Erie, and from Scranton to Pittsburgh, it's Behind the Headlines. I'm Charlie Greenewalt, Senior Fellow for the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy, and I'm joined as usual by my co-host, Maura Donnelly. Maura, welcome back.
Hello, Charlie.
Well, we've both been on assignment and had individuals filling in for us.
Yes, we did.
But we're coming back with a bang today because we have
are.
a fantastic guest today. We are fortunate enough today to have with us Pennsylvania's own State Treasurer, Stacey Garrity. Welcome to the show, Treasurer.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Maura. It's so great to be with you guys again.
It's nice to see you again.
Thank you.
It's nice to have you back. I guess you'd been here a little while ago, and perhaps some of our viewers missed that particular show. So I wanted to start off with a question, simply to ask you a little bit about your background. If you could fill the viewers in on where you came from and how you built your career.
Absolutely. So I was born and raised in Bradford County, still have a house there. So that's about 3 hours north, one of the more rural counties in the Commonwealth. And I am proud to be the first statewide officer elected from a rural county in over 40 years. Yes, but I spent 30 years in the Army Reserve, 3 deployments all to the Middle East. And if I had not hit that thing called your mandatory retirement date, which your veterans will know what that is, I would not be the state treasurer. I would still be serving in the military because serving was and is the honor of my lifetime. And then at the same time, I spent more than 3 decades working in the private sector in manufacturing at the largest tungsten smelter in the Western world, Global Tungsten and Powders, and worked my way up to be one of the first female vice presidents in the company.
Wow, and you left something out. You did. I just want to make sure everybody knows you had 2 Bronze Stars while you were serving our country.
I did.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Many accolades, I should say, but I think that's amazing. So I just want to congratulate you on that.
Thank you so
much.
Yeah, that only touches the surface of your military career.
Exactly.
It was extraordinary.
Well, you recently won re-election. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You were the top vote getter in Pennsylvania, which is quite a feat given everything that was going on, I should say. So what would you say Pennsylvanians are looking for right now in terms of leadership, in terms of direction, and tell us if you were surprised that you actually surpassed our governor in vote getting as well. Correct?
I was a little surprised, yes.
Yeah.
The top vote getter of any statewide,
very
including Josh Shapiro.
Yeah.
So I was incredibly honored, honestly, that Pennsylvanians have faith in me. And I think, just all the efforts from our office, all the records we broke, and then I have shown everybody that I will work with anybody. I don't care if you're a Republican, a Democrat, an independent, anybody that wants to make Pennsylvania a better place to work, live, and raise a family. And we really did build kind of a non-traditional bipartisan coalition.
That's great. It's very unusual these days.
Yes, I guess so, but
Yeah.
I'm not your typical politician. So.
Exactly.
Well, Treasurer, your office oversees more than $170 billion of Pennsylvania state funds. Can you give us a broad overview of the responsibilities of the Treasury and your job as Treasurer?
I would be happy to. So, of course, my main duty is to be the fiscal watchdog of the $170 billion. And of the $170 billion, my office directly invests $50 billion. We also run a number of consumer programs that are fantastic. So we run unclaimed property, where we have over $5 billion that we're trying to get back to hardworking Pennsylvanians that earned it. We run the PA 529 College and Career Savings Plan to help parents and grandparents save for their kids' education. And we run PA ABLE. ABLE stands for Achieving a Better Life Experience. and that is for people with Pennsylvanians with disabilities, and that's to help them have more financial freedom. We also make every single payment in the Commonwealth, and that is a lot of payments, over 19 million. Fun fact, 3 payments a second. Now, I'll tell you a couple things that we don't do because it gets confusing. So we do not collect taxes or process taxes. That's Department of Revenue. So we also do not determine eligibility for property tax rent rebate. Again, that's Department of Revenue. We make the payments within 24 hours after they get us the file, but we do not determine eligibility. And also, I do not determine eligibility for unemployment compensation. That's labor and industry. But again, we make the payments.
So clearly people have asked you if you would do those things, and you've had to say no.
Well, I have to tell you, we don't turn anybody away. We reach out and try to resolve their problem for them, even though it's not my office. And we can typically get somebody an answer within 24 hours.
Oh,
Just
that's
last
awesome.
week, I helped shake something loose from Department of Revenue.
Well, I'm very appreciative of that, because I bet that's pretty difficult at times.
It is,
So,
it is.
So I was reading recently that you have broken a lot of records. So can you tell our viewers and tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely, I'd be happy to. So I'll start with unclaimed property.
Okay.
So we hit the single year record of giving back money. That's $274 million. We hit a 2-year record of over $500 million. And so super excited about that.
Yeah.
We processed the most claims in any single year. Military decorations, we hit a new record with that. So we've given back over 500, including 12 Purple Hearts, 3 Bronze Stars, and 1 Gold Star Mothers and Widows Pilgrimage Medal, which was fantastic. First time we've ever received one of those medals. We earned gold in PA 529, gold rating for the second consecutive year, which makes us, that's the best rating you can get. And
Who gives that rating
so
out?
Morningstar gives that, and we
Okay.
got that for our investment plan.
Oh, okay.
And so the first year we got it, which was 2 years ago, we were one of 2 gold plans in the entire nation. And so I was like, oh my gosh, now we
great.
have to keep it. So we kept it.
Yeah.
And then with our program, PA Able, assets have more than tripled over the last 3 years, and accounts have more than doubled. So those are just a few.
Pretty amazing accomplishments.
Well, I give a lot of credit to, we have a wonderful staff,
Yeah.
and they are so dedicated to really helping hardworking Pennsylvanians.
Yeah.
Why, for those individuals who don't know what unclaimed property is, how can people see if they have any? And how could they claim it, Treasurer?
I know how to do this. Go
I
ahead.
know you do. So first of all, I am sure that some of your listeners have unclaimed property, because 1 out of 10 Pennsylvanians has unclaimed property, and the average claim is over $1,000. And right now, like I mentioned earlier, we have $5 billion. And I always like to say, you know what? This is money that does not belong to the state. It belongs to you, so get your money. So unclaimed property can be so many things. So it could be a dormant bank account, like a checking or savings account. It could be uncashed checks, rebates, insurance policies, so much more. We also get tangible items, typically from abandoned safe deposit boxes, and that's where we get our military
I was
decorations.
going to ask you where those come
Yes.
from. Okay.
Yes, but we also get tangible items from police evidence lockers and nursing homes. And so, fun fact, we have the largest working vault in the nation, and that's in my building, so I always like to brag about that. The front door alone is 60 tons, so it's 400 tons of steel.
In fact, wasn't in just this past week or so, wasn't there a special event involving that, and you giving a tour of that just recently?
Oh, yes, we give tours pretty much every week, and I think that's helping promote our unclaimed property, which is super exciting, because when I came into office, they had basically not stopped giving tours. And so now, they were, it was a little bit more difficult. Now I invite everybody in, and if I'm there, I'll give the tour myself. And in fact, I'm giving one today at 3 o'clock.
Well, because I'm an expert on unclaimed property, I just want everybody to know that you can look for your family members too, which I've
Look for
turned
your family, your
Everybody.
friends, your businesses, any organizations
Yeah.
you're associated with. So all you have to do, this is so easy, you just go to patreasury.gov/unclaimed property and pop in your name. And most claims you can do now right online. We now offer ACH.
Oh,
Yes, and you don't have
That
to.
part I didn't know.
Yes, and you don't have to use a notary. unless the claim is over $5,000. So we're really trying to make it easier for people to get their money back.
So that goes well with, tell us about Money Match, because that's a way that you're trying to get property back to people.
I am so excited about Pennsylvania Money Match, which just kicked in January of this year. And so Pennsylvania Money Match allows Treasury to proactively return unclaimed property back to Pennsylvanians if the claim is a single owner, living person, $500 or less.
Okay.
So it passed the House and the Senate unanimously, actually eliminating red tape from government. How great is that?
When can people start to expect their checks?
Okay, so we sent a first wave out. It was in mid-March.
Okay.
And so that was just about 8,000 checks totaling about $1.7 million. But we did a second round, and we did 40,000 checks. So first we send letters out.
Right.
And then we wait for 30 to 45 days, because if a letter gets returned, we're not going to send a check, because that means the claimant moved.
Well, you also do auctions. How do items
do.
go up for auction? Like, what's the time frame that, you've tried to find the owners? How does that work?
Sure. So even though we have the largest working vault in the nation, sometimes we can run out of room. And so we get these tangible items, like I said, mainly from abandoned safe deposit boxes. But we will look for the owner for at least 3 years, And then we do an online auction in the spring and the fall. But the good news is even if we've auctioned off somebody's property, if they discover that they had something next month, a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, that money will be for the person that owned the property in perpetuity.
Oh.
Well, I've heard a little bit about these property auctions, and I've heard that there's some very unusual items that can be sold and that you come across. Could you talk about some of the more unusual items that you've had the pleasure of auctioning?
Absolutely. So our last spring auction, which was in March, that netted about $480,000. And when I came into office, the auctions were typically averaging about $300,000. We had a record, speaking of records, we had another record, which was over $900,000 last fall, which was fantastic. But this last time we had a 22-carat gold bracelets, we had 14-carat chains, we've had, huge diamonds, we've had cigar baseball cards, all kinds of collectibles, you name it. Right now in the vault, this is super cool, we have autographed guitars from Red Hot Chili Peppers, Guns N' Roses, and the Rolling Stones.
And they don't want them back?
Well, that came from a police evidence locker.
Oh. They don't want them back.
Probably not. Well, maybe they'll see, because they're autographed.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite items, we have this huge bee necklace, which also came from a police evidence locker.
A bee?
A big bee. It's like 3 inches by 3.5 inches, and there are real diamonds encrusted on this bee. So I don't think we'll find that owner.
I was going to say, wouldn't you like to, though?
I would.
Yeah, that would be.
Because there's got to be a story with
Yes,
that necklace.
exactly.
There's a
Exactly.
story behind that one.
It's going to be very heavy, too. So we have a lot of different issues, so we'd like to shift gears, so maybe we'll take a quick break here.
Okay.
And we'll come back in a moment and hit some heavy-duty questions.
Fantastic.
We'll be right back after this.
Behind the Headlines is brought to you as a public service by the Pennsylvania State Association of Township Supervisors, the largest, most influential municipal association in the Commonwealth. Since 1921, PSATS has been preserving and strengthening township government and securing greater visibility and involvement for townships in the state and federal political arenas. Covering 95% of Pennsylvania's land mass, townships represent 5.5 million residents, more than any other type of political subdivision in Pennsylvania. Additional underwriting provided by the Edward H. and Jeannie Arnold Foundation and by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business. Behind the Headlines is also supported as a public service by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Visit pahighwayinfo.org.
Hi, welcome back to Behind the Headlines. We're fortunate enough to have with us this week State Treasurer Stacey Garrity. And Maura, you were just on the verge of asking the Treasurer a question, so I'll throw the mic back to you.
Something that I'm very interested in hearing about, and that is your business leadership experience. You touched on it briefly in the first segment of the show. Can you tell us a little bit about the company you worked for, what your responsibilities were and how long you did that. I think you mentioned that a long time, quite a long
Yes,
time.
so I was there for, gosh, over 30 years, actually. Now I'm aging myself. But I did, right out of college, I went to Global Tungsten and Powders, and they are the largest tungsten smelter in the world. So tungsten is a very heavy, dense metal. Most of the world's resources, about 80%, are in China. And so our supply chain was independent from China, so we were always very proud of that. But my assignment, before my last assignment, I ran 2 out of 3 of our business units, so roughly 500 employees. I was managing director for 9 years at our facility, Bruntal, in the Czech Republic, so I spent a lot of time in Europe. And my last assignment, I was vice president of
Government affairs?
Government Affairs and
Yeah,
Industry
yeah,
Liaison.
yeah.
Oh my
Okay.
gosh, I can't believe I forgot that.
No, that's okay.
So what was fun about that was, so I was president of Refractory Metals Association, and I got to do a lot of things. And so I saw this legislation that was going to be put through the National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA, and it was for rare earths. Basically, that you couldn't buy them from China, Russia, North Korea, Iran. So I said, oh my gosh, we have to add tungsten to that. And they said, Stacy, it's too late. It's going to hit the hill. You'd have to be in D.C. next week. I said, I will be there. And so we got tungsten added. And so the way I always explain it to the coworkers and the owners was, you can buy from anybody you want, but you can't buy from China, Russia, North Korea, Iran. And they still call it to this day, don't buy from the bad guys. And why it's great is that Global Tungsten and Powders, they did a lot of defense work. They do a lot of defense work. And so what everybody would do, our competitors, they would incorporate Chinese tungsten into Department of Defense munitions, and that made me crazy. And so it really helped the U.S. industrial base, which is a passion of mine. And so it not only helped Global Tungsten and Powders, but it helped all the competitors as well that had to compete with China.
Wow.
And people using Chinese tungsten.
Yeah.
Well, you were going back for a second to American defense, and of course you played a large role in that with your service in the forces. And one thing we didn't have a chance to talk about is actually your record of excellence in the service is more than you let on. You actually had a special nickname for your service in Iraq, heading up a prison of Iraqis, and they decided to call you Angel of the Desert. If you were holding them captive, what made you an angel? How did that come about?
Oh my
Treasurer?
goodness. So this came about in 2003, 2004, and it was Camp Bucca. And so I was responsible for all the in-processing, the out-processing, family visitation. I was the liaison with the ICRC, which is the Red Cross. So I was doing so many different things. But basically, the military had swept up all the Iraqis and foreign fighters, but everybody of military age. And so we happened to have a medical student there, and his parents were teachers. So they would come to family visitation every week, and he had already missed a semester. So I had a process where if somebody just had like a weapons violation, and that's what his was, he had a couple AK-47s, we could put them through a special tribunal. So I put this young man through the tribunal because we wanted to get him back in med school. And so his parents were so excited that the next day, and every day after, there were hundreds of Iraqis lined up outside of our gates saying that they wanted to see the blonde major that helped the people. So that was the one story, and then the other story is there was a detainee that told NPR when they were over in Iraq that I saved their life. And they were like, whose life did you save? And I said it could have been, they used to cut themselves because they thought they could get released early. And it was really dangerous. And so
That would be.
yeah, very dangerous. And so I said, okay, here's the deal. Anybody else that cuts themselves, you're going to go home last. You're not going to go home first. So it stopped all the cutting.
Yeah.
And I think that is probably, that is the other story that NPR heard about.
That sounds like saved a lot of lives.
Yes, probably. But my last deployment, I was the acting battalion commander in 2008, 2009 at Camp Bucca again. Why I had to go to Camp Bucca twice, is beyond me. But I had 7,000 detainees, 1,200 soldiers of my command. We also had death row, so there were about 225 detainees that came from death row. In the middle of the deployment, they had been sentenced to death by the Iraqi criminal court, and they had nowhere to execute them. So I held those. The other 7,000 were largely green, which meant that they would be repatriated at some point and go back to their communities. But it was funny because these death row detainees, they were really bad jihadists, hated women. And so they came in, and my interpreter said, just so you know, they have said they will never, ever speak to you. And I said, that's fantastic. You tell them I hope they never speak to me, and they don't have to speak to me. I have to have somebody check on them every 12 hours. I said, but I will tell you this. It will be within a day, and they're going to realize that they need something, and they're going to ask to speak to me. And once you know, it was like 2 hours. so much for the big, tough jihadists.
Yeah. I thought they would intimidate you right off the bat.
Exactly.
Little did they know. Well, let's come back to Pennsylvania.
Yes.
We still have more to talk about.
Yes,
in
we do.
Pennsylvania. There's a new law that gives Pennsylvania employers a 25% credit on their taxes for contributing to the employees' PA 529 and their PA able accounts. That's pretty new. Can you tell our viewers all about that?
It is brand new, and I am so excited about it because it's going to encourage families to save, and it's going to make these employers, a better place to work because they offer this benefit. So what it does is it gives employers who contribute to their employees 529 or PA able account a 25% tax credit on up to $500 per employee per account. And so Pennsylvania is the first state in the nation to do this with a PA able account. So I am super excited to be first because we're typically not first, as you know.
Usually not. But that's awesome. It sounds like more awards on the horizon.
Well, hopefully. So we're getting the word out, but it's brand new, and we're very excited about it.
Oh, that's great.
Treasurer, are you concerned about Governor Shapiro's spending and what he wants to do with this year's budget?
I am. So if you look at the governor's budget, and if you just look at the Independent Fiscal Office projection, he blows through all of the rainy day fund in 2 years and the surplus. And that is really scary. Just this next year, we're going to spend $3.5 billion more than what we bring in. And if you don't like the IFO projections, you can just look at the governor's 7-year projection. They run a deficit every single year. And what I always say, just like your family can't spend more than what they make, the state should be responsible and do the same thing. And it's not good because we should not be spending the rainy day fund on ongoing programs. We should be saving the rainy day fund for its intended purpose, to help out in an economic downturn.
Right.
And right now we have about $7.3 billion in the rainy day fund. When I took office, we had enough money to run the state for less than 48 hours. Now it's 53 days, about 15%, and that's right about where we should be. Because if you look at the great financial crisis in 2008, over that 2-year period, we needed about 15%. So I think we're at the right number. And so I'm encouraging the General Assembly to please not dip into the rainy day fund.
You've gotten a little bit of pushback on a couple of things that you've done in the past. One of them is the Israeli bond issue.
Yes.
It was a campaign issue. It continues to be an issue. Tell our viewers what that is and why. Explain why you're getting some pushback on it and what your stance is on it.
Right. So it's a great investment. And you know what? Pennsylvania has been invested in Israel bonds since 1988. 9 different treasurers, 6 Democrats, 2 Republicans, 1 independent. So, treasurers on both sides of the aisle have supported the investment. They have never defaulted, and the Israel bonds pays an above market rate of return. Right now, they're a little over 5%. So they're almost 1% higher than Treasury bonds right now. So I will always stand with Israel. They are our greatest ally in the Middle East, and I don't really care about the criticism, to be honest. So October 12th, 5 days after the Hamas attack, we invested $20 million. So we're at $45 million right now, and this month we're going to invest another $25 million.
Sounds like a fiscally prudent thing for Pennsylvanians to
It
do.
is. It's a win-win.
Yeah.
So it's
And
good
it's
for
been
Pennsylvania,
since
and it's
1988.
great to support our allies.
Right.
And yes, I've been protested. They staged a
Yeah.
die-in. That stuff really doesn't bother me. They can protest every day.
Treasurer, earlier this year, there have been improvements in the state's tax appeals process, and they took effect. They give taxpayers now more time to file. They create a new option for mediated settlements. Can you tell us a little bit more about the improvements that were made and any updates you may have on this?
Yes, I am so excited about this because, oh my gosh, if you've ever done an appeal, you know, starting with the Department of Revenue, it's a long process. It takes years. It takes, you know, the taxpayer. This hurts the little guy that doesn't have a CPA or a legal team. And so they end up hiring lawyers, and then typically they'll settle right before they go to Commonwealth Court. So that used to drive me crazy. So now, like you said, now they have, instead of 60 days to file an appeal, there's 90 days to file an appeal. And I'll give you a couple examples of why this was so important. So there was one case where there was a young lady going through very aggressive cancer treatments, and so she filed her appeal late. We could not hear it. There was another case. There was a truck driver who had a great filing history working in Texas, could not get back in time to access his tax records. And then there was another case where there was a traveling nurse working in a bunch of different states. She had her mail forwarded to her elderly mom, and the mom missed the notice from the Department of Revenue, and she filed late. So these are just a few cases. So now, moving it from 60 days to 90 days, we know it's working because the last 2 months, the late filed appeals year over year decreased by over 60%. So this was a good thing.
Big. That's huge.
Yeah, it is huge. And this just took effect January 29th of this year, so it's still in its infancy. But also now, the taxpayer can request a mediated settlement with the Department of Revenue. Now, Department of Revenue didn't like this very much, in all honesty, but we pushed really hard for it because, again, we want to be taxpayer friendly. And so a mediated settlement, it is not binding. And so what it will do is we estimate there'll be 500, when this is all up and running, 500 appeals that can be settled through this process a year. And you know what? It's going to save the Commonwealth about $35 million a year, we estimate. And hopefully it saves the taxpayer as well, and they think they got a fair process and it didn't drag out for years. So
good.
We're really excited about the reforms.
Well, Treasurer, we have about a minute and a half left, and I'm going to let
Are you gonna let me
Mara
ask it?
ask the most intriguing question of the program.
I was going to give it to you, Charlie, but I'll take it.
You take it.
Well, we've been hearing a lot about the fact that you might run for governor. There's been a lot of buzz. Where do you stand on this issue?
So
Please say yes.
I am really interested, and I'm exploring my options. And I really hadn't thought about it until, I started after this last election. Everybody started calling me, and first I said, I'm focused on being the best treasurer that I can be. But I think, Pennsylvania's at a crossroads. Everybody wonders where we're going next. I think we need somebody that is not going to spend more than what we make, somebody that's going to defend rural Pennsylvania, somebody that's going to unleash the liquid gold that we have under their feet, somebody that's not only a leader in the business world, but was a leader on the battlefield. And so I can promise you this, that I will do whatever I think I need to do to serve Pennsylvanians, wherever that is. And I will always, defend our Pennsylvania taxpayers, always. And always push government to do what's right.
Wow.
Okay.
We heard it here.
Well, we can't thank you enough for joining us today.
It was my honor.
We've been waiting for you to come back ever since you left the first time, and we'll be anticipating your next appearance with us. So tune in again next week for another new show on Behind the Headlines. We'll see you then.